Depending on where you're listening to us in the world, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Jason Burns.
And I'm Danny Nucci, and this is the What About podcast.
So, Danny, interesting story. Because we started this podcast, I've been thinking a lot about strange occurrences that have happened to me in my life.
Is that going to be one of our topics? Strange occurrences with Rudy Giuliani.
Well, many years ago, as you know, I live in a small town here in Massachusetts, a lot of back roads. I was driving back from the gym one morning. It was really early in the morning. And I'm one of these guys that if I see a turtle crossing the road, I stop and I help the turtle get to the other side. I don't want it to get,
of course,
I don't want it to get hit. I would stop on the highway, but this is just like a little small road. And so I get out of the car and it's this big snapping turtle. And thing about snapping turtles, I don't know if you have them there in California, but they can take
I don't even know what a snapping turtle is, but if it sounds like what it is, then I would stay away from one.
These have jaws and just like the bite can take a finger or two off in one bite. And they're nasty. But still, I wanted to help that turtle get across the street. So I'm looking for a big stick. I have it bite down on the stick and I start dragging it across the road there. And it's a little difficult because he's pretty heavy. They get real big. Suddenly,
what a visual!
Suddenly, there is a man behind me. He looks just like Morgan Freeman. He's in a white suit, and he helps me get this turtle across the street. He rests a hand on my shoulder, and he says, "You did good today, son." And then he walks away. And so I'm thinking, all these years later, did I meet God? Was this some sort of spiritual thing that happened?
Of course. How could you not have that thought?
And I don't know why, but I've just been thinking about it more and more these days since we've started this little journey.
I love that God not only sounds like Morgan Freeman, but looks like Morgan Freeman as well.
Yes. And I'm telling you, this was really early in the morning. So just to have this white suit on.
White suit. And by the way, in Massachusetts, in what is that? Western Mass, I guess it's called?
Yeah, it's like Eastern Mass, but we're not in the city.
Yeah,
we're not in the city. We're in a small town. And then he just walked off. That was all he said to me. He walked off. I got back in my car. I left. I said, "Oh, saved another turtle today."
Saved another turtle. This is a thing you do?
Check one off. Yeah.
Wow. Well, then, like I was going to say, maybe we can, Drew Holcomb can write a song about it, because apparently he can write a song about just about anything.
He can. And
can you write a song about meeting God in a white suit while trying to save a turtle? I know you can.
Snapping turtle. It's very specific.
Snapping turtle. By the way, that's the name of the whole record. But no, his new record is terrific. And I'm so glad we got to talk to him. And without further ado,
let's do it.
Here is Drew Holcomb. This is going to be easy because I love this record. So this worked out really well for me.
And Drew, I am also a super fan already. So I mean, I got many records.
Kitchen covers, come on.
Yeah, I got kitchen covers. My wife and I just recently went down to. I'm in Boston. We went down to New York to see you at City Winery. You and Ellie. And what's amazing about your music is that and I listen to a lot of music, is that we can enjoy it with our kids as well. And they like it. We're not forcing it on them, which is awesome. And that's what I noticed at City Winery, because you share tables there, which normally would make me nervous as shit. But we met so many great people, a mother, a daughter, like everybody. And it just seems like everybody can get together and enjoy your tunes, which I think is a special thing.
What was the percentage of new songs, Drew, that you played on that show?
Well, let's see. The City Winery show, the record wasn't out yet, so I think I only played maybe 3 or 4 of the new songs. But on this fall tour, it's probably 40% of the show is the new record.
I saw your Dragons tour as well, and what I loved about that one is when you guys played Dragons, you made it like this moment where you came up to the stage, everybody went acoustic. Are you doing anything like that with this record and this tour too?
Yeah, well, there's a couple things we're doing that I've never done before. I mean, I've sort of always like a lot of singer-songwriters kind of hidden behind the guitar. Mm-hmm. And there's maybe 4 songs on this tour. I mean, we're not playing the same set every night, but there's 4 songs that are rotating, 3 or 4 every night where I'm off guitar and I've got the mic and I've taken off the stand and,
Right out front.
Just, giving it my
right out front and
very
vulnerable.
very vulnerable, a little dancing. And then I've been doing this Adele cover, which is really vulnerable.
Oh man, yeah.
Covering the greatest singer alive is a little bit nerve-wracking, but after I do it, I've been joking with the audience, like, hey, I love Adele. If you don't love Adele, that's your problem. But she's $1,000 to go see her, and I'm $40, so you're welcome.
I'm a newbie to Drew Holcomb, right? So Jason's like, oh, you got to listen,
Welcome.
which is dude. I am so glad. I was listening to this record and I was going through the tracks and I'm like, oh, so I start with Fly, as one does, and I'm like, okay, I got this guy. Then the minute you go to find your people, they go, I don't got this guy at all. I have no idea what's going on. And then we get to All the Money in the World. I'm like, wait a minute, hold on a second. And the fact that this record is cohesive, even though it has, like All the Money in the World is just R&B gold, man. It's R&B gold for somebody that's, again, what you would think of as an Americana singer-songwriter. How did you write this record? Because as I was looking, I say this pretty much every podcast, but it's true. One of the things I love about doing this is I get to learn about things that I had no idea and research things that I had no idea about. So I was looking at your stuff and I realized that, you've been making records and playing music for a decent amount of time here. How did this record get written? Because this is what I'm interested in, Drew. How did this record get written while you're on the road? Did you stop and write the record? Was it something that did you put these songs together? Because they are not only well crafted, I mean, the record is beautifully produced and mixed, but not only are they well crafted, but they're clever and interesting and deep. Like, how did this record, when did you have time to write the record, let alone record it?
Well, this record really took me kind of a long time to make. I mean, most of these songs were written sort of in that weird kind of post-pandemic, I'd say January of 21 through the late summer of 22. And really even one actually spans deeper than that. I'll get back to this, All the Money, but Fly was really the first song I wrote for the record. I wrote it a couple days after New Year's 21. Just one of those like songs about kind of the passage of time and getting older. And I always feel very sort of, reflective around New Year's, because it's like, oh man, there goes another one, and so that song kind of just came out of that sort of looking in the mirror and feeling a little older. But
did most of that come out in one sitting?
Honestly, I wrote Fly in like 15 minutes.
Oh, that's outstanding.
Yeah,
don't you love those?
It's just
aren't
one
those nice? Thank you.
Yeah, they're so nice. Because then there's others that took, like I feel like some songs take years to write. But then really I started getting very intentional about writing in the summer of 21, a few months later. And what I did was, that was right around the time that my band started playing live again. So, everything stopped in March of 2020. We're a very like long-term, we've been touring 75 to 100 shows a year for 15, 20 years. So to have that sort of taken away was a very jarring experience for us, because we're not really like the band that tours once and then takes 2 years off. And we just kind of always traveling.
You always have dates.
Yeah, we always got something on the calendar.
What seems interesting to me is, again, I've seen you a bunch of times. It's usually been in like sit down venues, but this time around, at least in the Boston show, you're playing like a straight up stand up club. Is that intentional? You're trying different types of spaces?
Absolutely. Like that, around that same time. So like late spring, early summer of 21, we started playing shows, and a lot of them were these outside standing room potted things. And then we just started playing like more, I don't know for what reason, but I guess it was just what was open. People didn't want to sit in a theater like shoulder to shoulder with a stranger, So we're playing these big rooms with limited crowds, but they were standing room, and there was like an energy to it. And the songs that I've been writing have like this sort of more of a rock and roll sort of like energy, Dance with Everybody is a song I wrote with Ketch Secor from Old Crow Medicine Show, who wrote Wagon Wheel. We wrote that song about, being back in the room with the audience, and how we just wanted to like, grab everybody and dance with them. And then Find Your People, All the Money. So I intentionally made an effort when we booked this tour. I told my manager and agent, I said, look, I want to play standing room clubs. Like this record needs to be felt like with a wash of people close to the stage, feeling each other's energy and singing.
So it was specific to this record. So when you were writing it, did you have this in mind? I mean, obviously you were affected by the pandemic, and even though you had the opportunity to do a lot of writing. Did you, as you were writing it, did you think this is stuff that I want to play out? Did you think about that, or is it something that just happened organically? Two things started going down the same direction.
I always think about the stage and the show when I'm writing. That's really my primary sort of reason for doing this, is that I love the show. I love what happens between the audience and the artist. You know, this like sort of shared creative experience that's the live show. And then second to that, I really love making records, because then you get to sort of permanently stamp these songs into the ether, you know. So we started playing these shows, and my band was playing the best we've ever played. And so what really sort of put a burr in my saddle was, I thought, man, I got to get this band right now in the studio. So I need to write a big pile of songs just for us to go record. And so
you wanted to capture that energy that everybody had.
Yeah, it felt really special. And so I started writing a lot by myself, and then I started writing a lot with other people. And what I started doing was the first Monday of every month, I gathered the band in my writing space, unplugged. So we just literally had like a snare drum, a little keyboard, and a couple guitars and an acoustic bass. And I would play them everything I'd written that month. And then we would start working on arranging stuff.
Pieces? Did you have pieces? What did you have? Lyrical pieces, musical pieces? What did you have? Chorus here, bridge there?
Yeah, sometimes it was a full song. Sometimes it was just like, here's a verse, chorus. You know, what do you guys think? And it was about getting feedback. But this one particular month, I'd been a little lazy, right? So I didn't write a lot, but I still had them come in, and I was like, all right. So the day before, I went like deep into the vault of songs that, you know, I liked, but had never made sense before. And one of those was All the Money in the World. And so where that song came from was my buddy, Dave Barnes, his co-writer. He's like, hey man, he's like, you're from Memphis. He's like, you got this part of your voice that you don't use. And he's like, let's write a song that sort of like finds that spot. But instead of it feeling like Memphis, the way we did it at first, it felt like 90s Boys to Men, you know? It was like very chill. It was like, all the money in the world. It was like half the speed that it is now. And it just didn't really I just kind of that's cool. I'm never going to use that, you know? So then that's one of the songs I brought to the band, and they said, hold on. Let's click this up. Let's get this in like the Memphis Stax vibe. And all of a sudden the song went from being didn't have a chance to make it on the record to being an automatic in like 3 minutes. Mm. And that's cool about the collaborative process.
Yeah, I love that tune.
Thank you.
I was crazy about that tune. It really just made me go, okay, I don't know what's coming next on this record. Because I think it's 3, right? It's track 3. So I didn't know what was going on the record. And I was like, whoa, who is this Drew Holcomb in the Neighbors? I love this.
Danny is an actor. His wife is an actor. Drew's wife is also a musician. Was she like a soundboard for you on this? Because like you said, you were trying different things with your voice. I'm wondering if you brought that to her and said, is this working?
Oh yeah, for sure. She's my toughest critic, but also if I know if something's good, if she's like, that's, you know. So I played that one for her, and she's like dancing. She's like got the stank face, you know, and I'm like, okay, we did it.
Nice.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah. My wife is in the same way. She'll just go, I'll do a scene, and she'll go, yeah, I don't buy it. Okay, well, back to the drawing board.
Cool. Let's try that again.
Yeah. Let's try this again. Yeah, and then you go into. Listen, I'm not going to go through each track, but it is very exciting. And then you went to Gratitude, and I just thought, wow, what a cool song that doesn't feel preachy at all and has a wonderful message, but it's just something that it invites you. It doesn't force you, which I think is really good. And the other thing that occurred about. Because I listened to a bunch of different music. I'm not as, remember when you were like 20, 30? I'm 12. When I was 20 to 30, I would just be like, what's new? Now as I get older, I'm like, I don't know, there's these 10,000 that I like. So, so you don't get as many new songs. But I was listening to this and I thought, man, it brings you in, and it's got hooks. Drew, you're not afraid of a hook, friend. I mean, for somebody that writes, good lyrics and is a wonderful storyteller in terms of your lyrical stories, you are not afraid of a hook.
No, I'm a huge. For me, there's like the two trees of music that I sort of draw from are like the one is like the Dylan tree and the other is like the McCartney tree.
Boy, that's some good fruit picking right there, bud. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
Those are some good trees.
Yeah, you got to have the melodic piece. I think for me is like such a. What I've learned is that so many people who listen to music, the thing that grabs them first is the music, right? Is the sound, it's the melody, it's the hook, and then over time, like, wow, I didn't realize what you were saying there. That's pretty good. And you're like, that's there too, and then part of that's my band. I've been educated over a 20-year period of time by the guys in my band to really not just focus in on like what you're saying, but how you're saying it and the sort of sonic frame of it all.
Yeah, they're like, what about us? What's our contribution?
What do we do?
What do we do? Well, I mean, I'm assuming they played. I mean, it just sounds really good and tight. And the other one, my favorite song on the record, I know I say all the money, but it's not my favorite song. My favorite song on the record, not that we're talking about me, but why not? I'm here, is On a Roll. I feel like it's very Springsteen-esque, but emphasis on the esque. It is definitely your own tune, but it's just got everything you love about a Springsteen tune. How did you write that one? What was it? What was the inspiration for that one?
Yeah, that was cool. So, Nathan, my guitar player, has been in my band since he was 17 years old, and he's 37 now. So 20 years, his entire adult life has been making music with me. And he's written some songs in the past that we've recorded, but I've been always sort of like, hey, what are you writing? Because I've recorded probably 5 songs of his over our career, and then another 3 of Rich's, and maybe 4 of Rich's, the bass player. So those are the guys that have been with me for 2 decades. So as we were collecting songs, I kept pushing him like, hey, are you writing? I want to hear what you got, and so one day he's like, all right, I got this song. And so I know that he's written it with my sort of voice and intention sort of in mind, and he plays it for me.
After 20 years, how could he not hear your voice in his head, right?
Yeah. And so it's like, he played it for me, and I was like, oh yeah, this is nailing all the Bono, Springsteen killers. There's this big, I think the biggest thing about this record for me, and this kind of speaks to that like diversity of sound. I think every artist has this this tendency to sort of mythologize themselves. I think probably actors do this too. Like, this is what I'm good at. This is what I do. This is my lane. And I'm going to sort of, so for instance, you hear a song like All the Money and you go, that's not really what I do. That's not who I am. Or Dance with Everybody's another one where on this tour last fall, we released the song and I literally went into the crowd and danced every night at the end of the thing, which is, the old me was like, no, I'm a serious singer-songwriter guy who's dressed like an adult, and I'm going to sing my songs, and you're going to sit and listen in your chairs.
I love that voice. Let's not give that voice too much room. You know what I mean? This is what you're doing.
This is what you're doing.
This is who you are.
That's right. So I think for me, this record, what we basically did was let's gather all of the best songs that we have as a band, and let's record like 20 something of them. And let's not play by any rules. Let's if a song needs horns, we're going to add horns. If a song needs synth, we're going to add synth. If the song doesn't fit like with the others, let's just record it. Because my thinking was, if you get the same group of people in a room recording songs, it doesn't matter the genre. They work together because that's who we are.
Well, and it's interesting, Drew, because you say that internal voice of this is not who I am. But a lot of times, especially when you have a career that spans as many years as yours, fans will say that too. Like, oh, this is not who you are, Drew. This is not Souvenir album. And I fell in love with Souvenir album. How do you make them fall in love with you again?
You start with Fly and you say, I'm going to give you what you're used to. Mm-hmm. And this is maybe one of the best songs in that sort of classic, mythology that we've built. Mm-hmm. But then we're going to take you on this ride. So, I mean, what you said about the beginning was just like perfect about how you're like, oh, I get this. And then the second song, like, wait a minute, this is not what I was expecting. I want people to come to the show too, and they're like, "Wait, Drew's like dancing on the stage with a microphone. This is fun."
Again, I've never been to a Drew Holcomb show, so I don't know, but let me tell you something. If they haven't been singing along your entire career, they are going to start now. These songs are so friggin' singable. Plus, there's an audience part on All the Money, right?
Oh yeah.
They got a call and response part, which is going to be so. I mean, I'm sure it is. You've already played it. It's just so much fun. I mean, they're going to be singing along and dancing if they haven't, and yet it's you. I mean, I listened to a couple of tracks that just to kind of get a sense of it, but. Yeah, this is like you're not doing. This is not your disco album.
No, it's not some sort of persona. No, this is me.
Yeah, no. And it really works on that level. And there's not. I mean, there's no filler here.
Yeah, we're not going to get a Drew ska record next, are we? Something like it.
Definitely not.
And just in terms of, I mean, there's somewhat your lyrics are somewhat thematic. I mean, they span a number of different subjects, but they're certainly about what I like to call struggle, and hope. Mm-hmm. And I hear a lot of that. Do you write along the along the way? Do you sit down when you have a piece and go, okay, like you were talking about, just in terms of your lyrical content, or is it just when you get a sense of a song, you sort of start going in that direction?
I do a lot of sort of collecting. So I have this, notes full of words, and I'll grab a word that I see if I read, and then I'll take that to a journal, and then I'll try to find like 5 or 6 words that rhyme with it, and then start to put together lines. And that's how some of it comes together. Like other times I've got books of poetry sort of, strewn throughout my writing room, and I'll just start flipping through and try to find like a key word. And then other times I have like a musical idea, like that little hook at the beginning of Fly. That's just something that I've been playing on the guitar for years. And I finally sort of sat down and, just started sort of, I kind of pettied that one. Like Tom Petty, the thing I love about him is his songs aren't necessarily these like totally cohesive narratives, like a Springsteen song, but they're like little photographs, little lyrical photographs that are just like, you take them by themselves. You're like, geez, that's just a great line. Like I feel that on a deep level. And so that one was a little bit more like that. Then a song like, Dance with Everybody was sometimes when you co-write, you got this idea of like a feeling that you want to create. So what Ketch and I said was like, we want to write a song that feels like everybody's at a show, like ready, like at the end of the encore and the room is just on fire.
It's so great when that works, isn't it? When you're bouncing off ideas with somebody and you're like, yes, that one, let's do that. Yeah. And so on Fly, it's just so interesting. So that little lick that you've been playing on guitar finally said, okay, now. Yeah. Now, right? You're like, at some point, did you trust me to see after so much experience, you got to go, okay, it'll tell me when it's ready. Yeah. And all of a sudden it was like, yeah, no, now we're ready. This is the time.
Well, and that's why it only took 15 minutes because the music had been like sort of in my head for like 3 or 4 years. Find Your People is a cool one because I was sitting with a friend and we decided we're going to write together, and he's a songwriter in town, and he's like, man, I just got some stuff. I got some ideas I think would work well, whatever. So we get together, and the ideas he brought, we didn't even get to because we were just talking, drinking coffee, and we live in this really neat neighborhood where everybody not everybody, but a lot of our friends we've all been here like 15, 18 years. And when we moved to the neighborhood, it was a much different place, and it's changed a lot, some for better, some for worse, but very gentrified. But anyways, it's walkable, and we live within 5 blocks of 3 of our closest friends and their kids. And so we all started having kids at the same time. And I just said, yeah, he's like, man, I love what y'all got over here. I was like, yeah, we just got lucky, man. We really found our people. And he goes, found your people.
There you go. Yeah.
He goes, 2 things. 1, I want to find my people. And 2, we're going to write a song about it. And, again, it's like this thing you're talking about, like, in your 20s and 30s, you have a million friends because you're going a mile a minute. And then all of a sudden your career takes off. You start having a family. You don't have time for like social stuff, and then the stress of life and getting older, blah, blah, whatever. Nobody has any sympathy for us, but
except for the people our age, Drew.
What about entrepreneurship?
Do you automatically, as a musician in this day and age, have to have an entrepreneur mindset even before you delve into anything else?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that no one told me when I decided, like, hey, I want to be a traveling singer-songwriter, which is kind of how I framed it at 21 years old when I was finishing school and thinking about this. So nobody told me, that I was starting a business, that I needed to learn about, payroll and liability insurance and account,
the real sexy stuff about
P&Ls.
music, right?
I was like, what do you, yeah, this guy's like, what's your P&L? And I was like, I don't know. I don't speak that language. What do you mean? I found that very quickly that I actually really enjoyed that piece of it. I enjoyed building a team, aka a band, and then, manager and publicist. I've had the same publicist for 14 years. I've had the same manager for 12 years. Just like, really I've enjoyed that sort of that part of it, the business part of it, and then got sort of along the way. I've started a few other sort of side things that have gone along with that. Two of them are music related. One is a music festival called Moon River Festival, which is now in its 10th year in Chattanooga,
and just keeps getting bigger and bigger, right? I mean, I can't imagine that you ever thought it would get to where it is now. Where people are traveling from all over the world to come and see it.
Yeah, it's definitely way outgrown. And there've been, there's like 8 chapters to that story, which I won't go into. But when we first started it, it was basically like, I just want to get like 1,500 people to, come together and come to Memphis and do like more felt like a family reunion than a festival. Mm-hmm. And then it quickly grew into this whole other, beautiful experience that like people have been, like you said, coming to from, I think we had 40 something states and 8 countries as ticket buyers this year.
Crazy.
And then we started this vinyl subscription record club thing. And I love that kind of stuff, but at the end of the day, like it's
a lot of upkeep though, isn't it?
It's a lot of upkeep. That's what
when you're trying to write songs and tour and play with a band and improve your musicianship and figure out how you're going to go out front. That's a lot of time. Plus you said you have kids.
Yeah, I got 3 kids. Yeah.
And you tour with the family too, right? You're still touring with the whole family?
We do tour. Like, I mean, I'm on a 3-day break. I had a week and a half, and I leave again tomorrow for another 10 days. But my daughter, who's 11, is going to skip school Friday and Monday and come out on the bus with me for 4 days.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, she's super cool. So she likes to help sell merch, and like she it's also it's just really cool to share your life with your kids. I mean, they're obviously all going to go their own paths and do their own things, but I just want them to sort of see what we do and be a part of our lives. I mean, she's joked a few times. She's like, I mean, I like that you guys are artists, but it's kind of weird because my life is not at all like my friends' lives, and I'm like, yeah.
But what's beautiful is when she gets to be our age, she'll look back and say, wow, what a special upbringing I had, being able to take those 2 days off and spend time with my dad on the road.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, whatever she ends up doing, she's been privy to you both loving what you do, point, and that's kind of that's what lasts. Yeah. But
and back to the entrepreneurship, Drew. I know one of the other things is you have your hand in a Tennessee whiskey company now, which, as a Tennessee boy, I mean, can you get any more credibility where you live by being part owner of a whiskey company?
It's pretty cool. It's a great story. So when I went to college, I went to the University of Tennessee, and I was a very
Go Vols.
That's right, Go Vols. I was a very fortunate recipient of this brand new scholarship in the year 2000 called the Peyton Manning Scholarship. Now, I can assure you it had nothing to do with athletic ability because I'm not an athlete, but it was this academic leadership scholarship thing. Anyways, I won this scholarship, and I actually got to meet Peyton Manning as an 18-year-old. Now, to his credit, for 20 years, he stayed in touch with me once a year, via letter, email, etc. And then found out that he had been keeping up with my career. And so we ended up just kind of reconnecting through some different stuff. And then I had some other golf related buddies. This is all coming back to the whiskey, I promise. But there's this little 9-hole golf course called Sweetens Cove, and it was featured in the New York Times. It's kind of a Field of Dreams kind of story. This fledgling architect bought this like rundown 9-hole golf course and built his dream golf course on it, and ended up getting all this accolade. And Peyton and some other guys heard about it. Peyton still spends a lot of time in Tennessee. It's near where he's
Knoxville. Is it Knoxville? The one near Knoxville?
Chattanooga. Yeah. So these guys bought it, and they decided to launch a Tennessee bourbon out of that. And then they came to me and they said, "Look, we're looking for a friend who is a golfer, who's a musician, and who loves bourbon." And I'm like, "Well, that's this guy
right here. I'm your guy. I'm your Huckleberry.
I'll be your Huckleberry." Yeah, that's right. So yes, I've been involved with that. It's been really neat. I've learned a lot about the bourbon business. It's obviously a very sort of competitive and interesting space. And we've done some cool stuff. We're in like 20 states, and the golf course is doing really well as well. And
is that tied into the same sort of?
It's kind of the same. So, I mean, there's a couple different entities, but they're all the same sort of greater,
investment group, entrepreneurship.
So sure. That's been fun. I mean, I've had some total flops. One of the ones I had was, y'all appreciate this. I was like, okay, like everybody's so intrigued by tour buses, right?
Sure.
Like, oh, the magic tour bus, so I was like, ooh, I'm going to build a company that takes golfers on tour bus golf trips, and they bounce around every night to different places.
Oh yeah.
Well, 2 things happened on the trial run. One, people have no idea how expensive tour buses are.
Oh,
so these guys are like, so what is it like, $60 a man a night? And I'm like, you're about 400 shy. And then, and the second one was, they didn't realize how hard it is to sleep on these things. The first trip, the guys were like, man, that was awful. So I had already built a website, hired a web designer, sunk all this money in t-shirts and all this stuff. So I've tried my hand at stuff that has totally flopped as well.
So but it sounds like you've been sort of, a lot of people come up with ideas. You sit around, no, that'd be great. And then what we'll do is, but you actually sound like you're like, okay, I have this idea. Let's take some action. Let's call some people. Let's see if this is a viable thing forward.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's honestly one of the things that makes my wife a little nervous about when I'm not on the road. she's like, don't stay home too long, because then you'll come up with a new idea, and then we got to go execute this idea. And it's like, yeah, sorry. But one of the things I learned in the pandemic, and this was a really beautiful thing for me. So right in February of 2020, right before everything happened, we bought this 30-acre farm west of Nashville. And my vision was, I had been to one of these like Airstream hotels, right? And I was like, okay, I'm going to buy this farm. I'm going to get some investors, and we're going to build these fancy Airbnb tree houses and Airstreams. And we're going to make like a 40-unit hotel, and it's going to be music themed. There's going to be a show every Saturday night, high dollar, like VIP experience thing. And I was like out there cutting grass and meeting with architects and designers. And then all of a sudden the pandemic hits. And about 8 weeks into the pandemic, what I realized was, even without touring, the thing that is my bread and butter is music. Like, we were doing these live stream shows that were working. We did this thing called Kitchen Covers that was working. And I was writing like crazy. Yeah, see, there it is right there, the Kitchen Covers. We ended up selling 10,000 copies of those vinyls, which was insane.
That's incredible.
And kept our whole sort of enterprise going for a while. And then also right in that, I think it was like June of 2020, we got this huge license thing with Tyson Chicken, where they used the song "Family" as their like ad for like getting through the pandemic.
But there was a second commercial. I remember "Family" being on 2 commercial at the time.
Yeah, Ford. It was a Ford Super Bowl ad in 21. Mm-hmm. And so what I realized through that, this all sort of comes back to this piece where I realized that my best work is my music. And so what happened with this album is, this was the first album in a decade where I literally tuned out everything else for like 8 months. I'm not doing any entrepreneurship stuff on the side. I have a viable entrepreneurial business that I've started that is based in creativity and has employees and staff. And, we needs my full attention. And it's been beautiful to see that energy sort of wisely transfer, because I sold the farm. The festival has like people who run it now, and I just help with the lineup. And it's really set me free to just be okay with, doing this thing.
What's really cool, Drew, in that show that I saw down in New York at City Winery, and this sort of ties into entrepreneurship, is that you and Ellie took a break and you brought up the person who was running your merchandise booth to play some of her songs. And I felt like you were helping another musician start their career by putting that person front and center in front of your audience. And I tried to find the name after I left that show, but I had a little too many bourbons myself that night and couldn't. And I just thought that was such an amazing thing that you were giving somebody the spotlight during the middle of your show.
I just dropped her name in your chat. Her name is Jack, Jac Thompson.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, no, she's incredible. And I think too, that's cool. I appreciate you bringing that up. I mean,
that's part of the Moon River thing, right? I mean, that's got to be one of the things that you get to do, sharing with things that you like and giving them a platform in which to do it.
Yeah, for sure. And I was platformed by so many people. I've been taken on tour by, the Avett Brothers and Need to Breathe and Willie Nelson, and people have shared, Darius Rucker, people have shared their audiences with me. We've had like 150 TV and film placements over the years. And so I'll meet people and be like, oh, you're the guy that I heard on Criminal Minds, or like, oh, I heard you on
Yeah.
Deadliest Catch, House, whatever. I mean, there's like piles of these songs that have made their way by other people, like bringing our music into their creative thing. And that's been a really neat thing, because we've never, obviously, like even going back to the genre conversation, because my music is sort of spans these different genres, never really been like a home for me. We're not a pop act. We're not a country act. We don't fit these like radio mainstream silos, which is fine. That's not, my favorite artist didn't either. Van Morrison, I don't think ever had a hit. Springsteen's had one, has never had a number one song on radio, so,
which is amazing to think about, right?
Isn't that wild? Yeah, he's like one of the top 5 selling artists of all time, and he's never had a number one song on radio.
All right, so this is our audience question. So Philip G asks, what skill does someone need, not that this is a skill, outside of capital, to be an entrepreneur in 2023?
I think even more than capital, you have to take your idea and take a risk with it and actually make steps in a direction to make that idea come to reality. I know so many people who have great ideas and they say, oh, I'm going to do this. And you say, okay. And you call them, you talk to them like a week later. Have you done that? No, I'm waiting on whatever. I'm waiting on, this call or this meeting or whatever. And, even to Philip's question, the capital follows somebody doing the work and taking the risk, like capital doesn't make you go to work. You have to go to work first, and then capital sees opportunity, and so I think for me, like the entrepreneurs, even like the songwriting thing, I was writing songs in my dorm room senior year. Right. I got these songs and I got my friends telling me, hey, these are good. The first sort of, I didn't even realize it was an entrepreneurial step. But I called this bar, and I said, "Hey, I want to bring my buddies. I got a bunch of friends here at UT. Like we'll fill up your place. We'll buy food and drinks, and give me like 7:00 on a Tuesday." And the guy's like, "No, okay." Or actually, he didn't even return my call the first 10 times I called him.
10 times.
Yeah, I get it. No,
you didn't even get a no.
Yeah, exactly. I got a voice message, But I just stayed, and I went and knocked on the door right when they opened. I'm like, hey, is so-and-so here? I want to play, And so finally the guy let me play. And then once I got that opportunity, the next thing I had to do was go literally call every one of my close friends and say, hey, Tuesday, September 28th, I'm playing here. You have to come. You have to pay $5, and I'll give you $5 if you need it to come. But you got to come, and you got to bring friends. And so I had 40 people show up at this tiny little place. And then the third thing I did was I don't think the songs were good, but I put my heart all over that stage, just gave it everything I've got.
Plus you can sing. I mean, you write lovely songs and your band is, but holy shit, like on Gratitude, man, you got pipes, kid. I mean,
Thank
you
you.
can
Thank you.
sing.
I'll be honest with you. I think that if you saw me sing in 2003 when I did this first show, I think you would have. I think you would have said,
I might feel differently.
I could maybe see it.
Could you have done Adele then?
Oh no! I mean, it would have been a total train wreck. Yeah, absolutely not.
Yeah, how about that dude, huh? It's so great because I had no idea that he'd been doing it that long, and I cannot wait to do a deep dive on Drew Holcomb.
He's one of these musicians, these singer-songwriters that has built up such a huge following. And then this summer, we didn't even have a chance to talk about this with him, but he was opening for Darius Rucker on like an amphitheater tour. So it's so cool to see his audience grow bigger and bigger, especially for me over the years, because I've seen him live so many times, and you just see the venues grow.
I thought one of the most interesting things he said was that here he is playing with this band, and they are cooking, and he's like, "Oh, we got to get in the studio." They're because he knows them, he's played with them for years, and the idea that okay, they're cooking, let's get this down on tape, or not tape, but it's what they used to call it back in the day, James. Gotta get it on tape, see?
Do you have that vibe acting? Like, do you have a day where you're like, everybody's on the same page and you're like, man, I wish we could just get like 3 or 4 more scenes
No, I think we
today.
just did like, you know what? Let's just keep it rolling. I mean, in terms of takes, right? So like, yeah, we probably, you know what? There's something else here. Let's keep rolling. Let's do another one. So it's more like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this was terrific. And I look forward to the next one.
You always say, you say something at the end of each one. What is that?
I do. I say, thanks for listening.
Music by Denny Nucci. Produced and edited by the same 2 people you heard hosting this show because they have no friends.